So, at the time, I was a freelance video editor living in a tiny apartment in Austin, Texas. And when I say tiny apartment, I mean my desk was 6 inches away from my bed. If I leaned too far back during editing sessions, I'd physically touch my laundry pile. Peak entrepreneur lifestyle. I had quit my corporate marketing job about a year earlier after watching approximately 17 Escape the 9 to 5 YouTube videos at 2 a.m. Terrible financial decision. Emotionally, incredible. At first, freelancing was exciting. No boss, no alarm clock, no awkward office birthday parties where everyone pretends to care about Karen from accounting. Just freedom. Except nobody tells you freelance freedom comes bundled with psychological warfare. 1 month, I'd make $11,000. The next month, I'd make $800 and start Googling, can adults survive on instant ramen emotionally? I was doing mostly YouTube editing and social media content for startups, coaches, crypto weirdos, and one guy who genuinely called himself a mindset alpha mentor. That client alone deserves federal investigation. But somehow, despite the chaos, things started working. I got bigger clients, retainers, referrals. My income exploded. And because I'm apparently allergic to long-term thinking, I celebrated by upgrading my lifestyle immediately. Classic freelancer mistake. New monitor, new iPhone, Uber Eats every night. Random productivity gadgets TikTok convinced me would change my workflow.
Spoiler, none of them changed my workflow. One was literally just a timer cube. A cube! That's when I made the biggest mistake of my entire freelance career. I forgot taxes existed. Not literally, but mentally, I treated taxes like future me's problem. And future me was about to get body slammed by reality. Story buildup. At first, the money felt fake. You ever notice how freelance money doesn't feel real? Because it arrives randomly. Like one day, wow, I made $4,000 this week. Then suddenly, why is my client pretending I don't exist anymore? I had one client ghost me for so long I started wondering if he'd entered witness protection. Another paid me entirely in motivational voice notes for 2 weeks. Big things coming, brother. I needed rent, not spiritual encouragement. Meanwhile, my sleep schedule became completely unhinged. I'd edit until 4 a.m., wake up at noon, drink enough caffeine to legally classify my bloodstream as espresso. And because freelancers are psychologically incapable of relaxing, every free moment became guilt. Watching Netflix should be working.
Going outside? Probably should optimize funnel strategy instead. Seeing friends? Only if networking opportunity. Freelancing slowly turns your brain into a productivity cult. But the money kept improving. At one point, I crossed 100K annualized income, which sounds impressive until you realize I had absolutely no system. No LLC, no bookkeeping, no retirement planning. I tracked expenses using screenshots and pure delusion. Then, tax season arrived, and that's when things got weird. At first, I ignored it. Every freelancer does this. You receive those important tax reminder emails and immediately decide future you will handle it. Future you never handles it. Future you panics. So one afternoon, I finally opened my accounting software, and my stomach physically dropped. I owed more money than I had in savings. By a lot. I remember staring at the number, thinking, there is absolutely no way this is correct. I refreshed the page 6 times, as if TurboTax would suddenly say, just kidding, King, you're good. Nope. Apparently, when you're self-employed, the government expects taxes before you accidentally spend all your money on DoorDash and LED desk lighting. Who knew? At this point, I entered full freelancer panic mode, which basically means excessive pacing, watching finance YouTube videos, pretending spreadsheets are understandable, Googling how to leave the country respectfully. Then my accountant called me, and this phone call genuinely changed everything. The accountant call. Now, I need you to understand something. Accountants always sound calm, even when your financial situation resembles a dumpster fire floating through a hurricane. Mine goes, okay, so I looked over your numbers. That pause alone almost killed me. Then she says, you're missing thousands in deductions. I sat there confused because I thought deductions were just laptops. Apparently not. She starts listing things. Home office, internet, software subscriptions, health insurance, equipment depreciation, business meals, mileage. At one point, I interrupted her and said, wait, my coffee shop meetings count? And she goes, yes, potentially. I nearly ascended spiritually because suddenly my chaotic freelancer lifestyle became financially useful. Then she mentioned something I had never heard before, the S-Corp election. And this is where the story becomes insane. Because apparently there's this completely legal tax strategy freelancers use that almost nobody talks about correctly online. Every finance bro on TikTok explains it like, bro, just get LLC, bro. That's not how it works. At all. My accountant explained that once freelancers reach a certain income level, they can elect to be taxed as an S corporation. Meaning instead of paying full self-employment taxes on all income, you pay yourself a reasonable salary and the remaining profit distributions avoid certain payroll taxes. When she explained how much money this could save me, I literally thought she misplaced a decimal. Thousands. Actual thousands. And I had accidentally ignored this for an entire year. I felt physically ill because suddenly I realized I wasn't broke because freelancing failed. I was broke because nobody teaches freelancers how money actually works. And unfortunately, that realization came at the worst possible time. Because 2 days later, my biggest client vanished. This client was paying me almost $6,000 a month. Retainer, consistent work, easy edits. Or so I thought. Then one Monday morning, nothing. No Slack reply, no email, no payment. I wasn't worried at first because clients disappear temporarily all the time. Freelancers basically develop abandonment issues professionally. But after a week, still nothing. Then I checked Twitter. The company had completely imploded. Employees posting cryptic messages, founders deleting bios, people demanding refunds. I sat there in sweatpants, holding cold coffee, realizing, oh my God, I'm not getting paid. And suddenly, everything hit at once. Rent, taxes, credit cards, subscriptions. I had built my entire financial life around income that disappeared overnight. That moment changed how I viewed freelancing forever. Because social media sells freelancing like freedom, but nobody talks about the instability. Nobody posts, just had a panic attack because 3 clients disappeared simultaneously. No, instead it's working remotely from Bali. Meanwhile, most freelancers are one bad month away from emotional collapse. I started spiraling hard, taking random low-paying gigs, editing terrible podcast clips at 3 a.m., accepting clients with obvious red flags because I needed cash. One guy paid me $400 to make viral alpha edits. I still don't know what that means. Then, burnout hit. Hard. I stopped going outside, stopped answering friends,
Started doom-scrolling freelancer Reddit threads at night. Worst mistake imaginable. Because freelancer Reddit at 2 a.m. feels like reading financial horror stories beside a campfire. Every post was, client refuses to pay, IRS audit help, AI replaced my income, thinking of quitting freelancing forever. At one point, I genuinely considered getting a normal job again. And weirdly, That thought terrified me more than being broke. Because despite the chaos, I loved freelancing. I loved building something myself. I just hated the instability. Then one night, while reviewing my finances again, I noticed something weird. Something my accountant had said earlier suddenly clicked. And this is the part that saved me. I realized I had been treating my freelance business like random personal income instead of an actual company. That distinction changes everything. Because once I reorganized properly, the numbers completely shifted. I opened a separate business bank account, tracked every expense correctly, started quarterly tax payments, filed the S-Corp election, documented legitimate deductions. And suddenly, I wasn't drowning anymore. Now, obviously this wasn't some magical cheat code. I still had responsibilities. But the difference was insane. Before, chaotic money. After, intentional money. And emotionally, that changed freelancing completely. I stopped feeling like I was surviving month to month. I started feeling like an actual business owner. Which sounds cringe until you experience the psychological difference yourself. I even remember the exact moment it hit me. I was sitting in a coffee shop reviewing my quarterly finances. A sentence so boring it physically hurts. But for the first time ever, I wasn't scared to look at my numbers. That feeling is addictive. Because financial anxiety quietly controls your life. Freelancers especially. You start associating notifications with danger. Every email feels threatening. Every bank login becomes emotionally risky. But once systems exist, your brain calms down. And ironically, that's when my freelance business finally grew faster. Because panic is terrible for decision-making. When you're desperate, you accept horrible clients. When you're stable, you become selective. That one change doubled my confidence. And confidence changes negotiations. I started charging more, creating contracts, setting boundaries. One client asked for 17 revisions. Old me? Okay, sorry. Haha. New me? That exceeds project scope. Growth. Beautiful growth. But I still hadn't solved the biggest problem yet. Because even after the tax savings, I was emotionally exhausted. And what happened next forced me to completely rethink my entire lifestyle. One Friday night around 11 p.m., I was editing a YouTube ad for a crypto startup that definitely should not have existed. My eyes were burning. I hadn't eaten real food all day. My apartment smelled like stress and instant noodles. Then my mom called, and she asked a question that completely destroyed me emotionally. Are you actually happy doing this? Simple question. Absolutely devastating timing. Because freelancers get so obsessed with surviving financially, they forget to evaluate whether their life is even enjoyable anymore. And honestly, I didn't know the answer. I had optimized my life into misery. Everything became work. Content, clients, invoices, taxes, productivity, algorithms. Even my hobbies started feeling monetized. I couldn't watch YouTube without analyzing retention strategies. Couldn't scroll social media without comparing income. Couldn't relax without guilt. I was technically successful, but psychologically cooked. So that night, I closed my laptop for the first time in months.
And I just sat there quietly. No podcast, no notifications, no hustle content. Silence. And weirdly, that silence
changed my entire life more than any money ever did. Because I realized freelancing wasn't supposed to become another prison. The whole point was freedom. And I had accidentally recreated corporate burnout inside my apartment. Except now, my boss was me. Which, honestly, is worse, because my boss had terrible boundaries. So over the next few months, I changed everything. Reduced clients, raised prices, built systems, created savings, scheduled actual time off. And slowly, freelancing stopped feeling like survival. It started feeling sustainable. Then tax season came around again. And this time, no panic attack, no dread, no existential crisis beside the microwave. Just organized numbers. My accountant reviewed everything and casually said, "You saved quite a bit this year." I smiled like a man who survived war. Because technically, I had. Freelancer war.
Here's the funny part. The tax loophole didn't just save me money. It exposed every flaw in how I approached freelancing. I thought success meant making more money, but real success was stability, systems, savings, boundaries, financial literacy, the boring stuff nobody makes viral TikToks about. And honestly, most freelancers never learn this until they suffer first, because internet hustle culture only shows revenue screenshots. Nobody posts, "Just opened a retirement account and felt emotionally secure." Not sexy enough for social media. But that's the stuff that actually changes your life. I still freelance today. Still edit videos, still work remotely, still occasionally spiral when a client says, "Quick revision." Because quick revision has historically ruined civilizations. But now, things feel different. Less chaotic. Less survival-based. I finally understand that freelancing isn't just creative work. It's business ownership. And once I accepted that, everything changed.
Sometimes I think about that version of me sitting on the kitchen floor panicking over taxes, completely overwhelmed, convinced everything was collapsing. And honestly, I wish I could go back and tell him one thing. You're not failing. You're just uninformed. Because freelancing has this weird way of making smart people feel stupid. Nobody teaches you this stuff beforehand. You learn through mistakes, stress, embarrassing money disasters, and mildly traumatic accountant phone calls. But weirdly, I'm grateful for it now. Even the chaos, especially the chaos. Because nothing teaches financial responsibility faster than the IRS humbling you spiritually. And if you're freelancing right now, stressed about money, burned out, pretending everything's fine on social media, just know most freelancers are secretly figuring it out in real time too. Even the successful ones. Especially the successful ones. And honestly, that realization alone might save you thousands someday. Or, at minimum, save you from buying another unnecessary productivity gadget at 2 a.m. Trust me, the timer cube won't fix your life.